Air tools. What are they and should you buy them? Air tools are tools that rather than being powered by electric, they're actually powered by compressed air. Air tools come in various different options. To power these tools, you'll need a compressor. I use this SGS 50 litre 9.6 CFM compressor, and it works well for pretty much all of my needs. I've got a range of air tools and my collection is only really going to grow. So, why should you buy air tools? So I'm going to run through 5 reasons that you should buy air tools, and then for balance I'm also going to run through 5 reasons that maybe they're not the tools for you. First up is that they are lighter and often smaller than the equivalent electric tools. Because air tools don't require a battery pack or a large motor to be powered, it often means that they're significantly lighter and often smaller than the equivalent mains or battery powered options. If you're using a tool for a long time, the lightweight nature of these tools can often be a benefit. I love this air sander because it's smaller and it's lighter than my random orbit electric sander, which means using it for a long time, it's a lot more comfortable in the hand. Plus, because this doesn't run off a motor, it means you don't get that vibration and that hand pain that you sometimes get using an electric sander. Because air tools, again, don't need an electric motor, it means there's less parts to go wrong. Air tools usually last many years, and I know of people who are using the same air tools that they've been using for about 20 years and they're still going strong. How many of us have had a motor or an electric issue with a tool? I know in the last few years I've probably had 4 or 5 tools that have had issues, and it's always been something electric like the motor. And since using these air tools, I've not had any of them go wrong. Another big benefit of air tools is the fact that there's a massive range of tools that you can get. These cover many applications like a nailer, a small grinder, and once you've got yourself a compressor, most of these should work with it. There's also no need for a battery. How many times have we gone to grab something like a drill and went to use it and the battery's dead? With air tools, all you need is compressed air, so there's no need for any battery power. If you haven't got a spare battery with charge, you've got to wait for the battery to charge to be able to use the tool. With air tools, you can use them instantly as long as the compressor is full of air. And even if it isn't, it only takes a couple of minutes normally to fill the compressor tank. Air tools are actually pretty cheap for the performance that they deliver, and they're usually a lot cheaper than the equivalent electric versions. Again, this is most likely down to the lack of complex electrical parts inside of these tools, and running tools off of compressed air seems to be a very efficient way to run them. Now, I'm not an expert and I don't have any scientific data to back this up, but I'm always very impressed with how well the air can actually run these tools. So that's 5 reasons that you should potentially buy some air tools, but for balance, here's 5 reasons that maybe they're not quite right for you. First up, and this is the main one to be honest, is the fact that you will need a compressor to run these tools. So if you don't already have a compressor, it means you're going to have to buy one. I bought my compressor to respray the camper van that we converted, and I've since then bought air tools on the back of that. But if you don't already have a compressor, you'd obviously have to buy one. Now, that being said, it probably is worth buying one, but there's other issues with a compressor like having space for one. If you don't have space for one, it's obviously not going to be something that you're going to prioritize. Now, these tools obviously aren't quite as portable as the cordless electric versions. Now, that being said, they are still pretty portable. I've got myself a long air line that's just wrapped around up here, which means wherever I am in my small workshop, I can use them, and it also reaches out onto our patio, so I can use them around there. But obviously it's not quite as easy to plug this into an airline and run it as it is to grab a tool like an impact driver, chuck a battery in, and away you go. So if you're more likely to use them, say around the garden or on job sites rather than in a workshop or a shed, it might not be the best option for you. Another slight issue is some of the smaller and obviously cheaper compressors won't run some of the tools because they need a certain amount of air to power them. So I've got a 50 litre SGS compressor, and that'll run most things, but there are some tools that will need more air and more power to run them. Another slight downside of some air tools is the noise. So we'll all probably recognise sounds like this from pneumatic tools, but the real noise comes from the compressor. So my compressor's next door, as you can hear. Now that's not majorly loud, it's not loud enough to even need ear defenders, but if your compressor is in the same room, ear defenders are a must. Gonna have to wait for that to fill now, aren't I? I mean, I could just walk next door, but it's so far. And then finally, slight downside, but nothing major, is the fact air tools need a little bit more maintenance than the electrical ones. Because air obviously contains moisture, and these are being powered by air, there's going to be moisture getting into these tools, so you have to regularly oil them. Now what I do is I just have a small little syringe, and then every time I'm using a tool I'll just put a drop of oil in, and then run it quickly, and then that'll oil the inside of the tool. Now, like I say, that's not a massive issue. It takes you 10 seconds, and if you've got something like a syringe set up, it's really, really quick. But it's just one of those things that you have to stay on top of, you have to remember to do, and it's the sort of thing that electric tools you don't really need to think about. Obviously, if you do it, these tools are going to last you years and years. If you don't, there's going to potentially be rusting issues inside of them. Now, you can get moisture traps, and I have got a moisture trap set up just under the workbench down there. It's behind a few things, so you can't actually see it. But what that does is, as it sounds, it traps the moisture as it comes through the airline. Now, that obviously takes a lot of the moisture away, but there's still going to be a little bit of moisture getting through. But it is just worth staying on top of oiling these just to make sure they last you many years. So, should you be investing in air tools? If you've already got a compressor, then absolutely you should be investing in air tools. Or if you've got the budget and the space for a compressor, I would also massively recommend investing in some. For me personally, the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. Now, you can obviously weigh things up for yourself, but if the positives outweigh the negatives, it makes sense to invest a little bit of money into a compressor. Mine, I think, was just over £100, not massively expensive in terms of tools. The money that you're going to save on tools like nailers and sanders and all these other things will make the difference for buying the compressor. And if you are going to invest in some air tools, you should be able to get yourself some top quality tools that are a fraction of the cost of electric ones that will hopefully last you many, many years. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.